It's a waiver wire Tuesday as we approach week 12. Today we're going to be looking at the running backs, and we're going to look at a lot of running backs so you can pick the flavor you want this week. But the story, as in it's the same story every week with these running backs, is that there's not many injuries happening in the NFL, and mainly you're looking at handcuff, lottery ticket running backs. Not many running backs, unless guys got dumped, that can really impact lineups. So right now, we just got to take the market for what it is and look for our favorite stashes. That's why we're talking about stashes every week, because we got a lot of stash running backs. We got like 10 to 15 of them because they're not getting opportunities because the starting running backs are staying upright. However, you still need to look at these running backs, especially if you're going to make a run for the playoffs, because you need that insurance policy, you need that upside play, and during the playoff time, you cannot afford to gamble with your fab, getting that player, not getting that player. If your running back gets injured, if another running back gets injured and gets picked up by the person you're playing against, that is something you want to pay attention to. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're going deep on the running backs and wide receivers today off the waiver wire. We'll talk more waiver wire throughout the week. We're going to do a lot of deep dives. We're going to get you ready for the NFL draft and dynasty rookie drafts. We're going to be looking at high school recruits. We're going to help you set your fantasy football lineups. It's all right here for free. Click that button. Stop missing out. But we're going to start off with Tank Bigsby. He has been released back into the wild, the waiver wire, in a lot of fantasy leagues. And you're looking at him, you're wondering if you should pick him up or not when he comes back from injury. The thing about this, and what we know to be true with Tank Bigsby, is he's off and on with fantasy production. There are a lot of games where he gives you nothing, and there are some games where he just comes out of nowhere, gives you a little something, and then everybody the next week's talking about Tank Bigsby's having that come up. And next thing you know, next few games, where are you at? Where are you at? And it's the Jacksonville Jaguars too. This team's up and down. We're hurting at quarterback right now. We're not moving the ball. Tank Bigsby is an option for touches when he's back, and he's a gamble play. And when you're looking at the other running backs off the waiver wire and a guy to pick up, at least you know work will be there, and that work could lead to something. Ameer Abdullah is one of the few running backs in this week's batch of waiver wire running backs that could be stepping up into a bigger opportunity. Alexander Madison got hurt. Don't know if he's going to be out or not. We're going to watch the Wednesday and Thursday practice reports. We'll have a better gauge on that. On top of that, Zamir White got hurt. We're going to be watching the practice reports on that. But Ameer Abdullah might be stepping into more work. But it is the Raiders. It is Ameer Abdullah. Ameer Abdullah has the tendency to give you like one game of like RB2 production about once or twice a year. Just sneaks up some production here and there. That's just how it is with him. And Ameer Abdullah could do that or give you a 10 spot. A 10 spot's not going to win your week, but it could keep you afloat. But if he gets the work rate, gets some opportunity, gets like 8, 9, 10 carries, 3, 4 targets, catches all of them or most of them, that could be enough to get you 10 fantasy points. That could get you by, upside with touchdowns and everything else, busted plays. Ameer Abdullah could be a play to look at if you're looking for a running back that's getting touches, and we'll know later in the week. Roschon Johnson saw more work last week, especially around the red zone. They just kept hammering it with him. We got some changes with the coaching staff here. They're trying to make some changes because they all got to keep their jobs. And right now we're looking at the snap share, and it's increasing over these last 3 weeks. 38%, 33%, 42%. Prior to that, it was in the 20s, off and on in the 30s as well. Very similar, but it's starting to increase up. The work rate was pushing a 40% opportunity share. We usually get a little bit more work in the passing game. However, it's off and on with him because DeAndre Swift sucks up a lot of work in the passing game. A good handcuff to have, because with the touches he's getting right now with DeAndre Swift there, we know that the Bears like him. We know that the Bears are willing to ride him, and that's something to look at. Might not be the sexiest handcuff. He's not my top handcuff. Jaylen Warren might get more opportunities throughout the season, and if something happens to Najee Harris, he's going to get a lot of work. Still saw a 34.2% opportunity share. With that opportunity share, if you need someone to plug in on bye weeks or injuries or whatever happens. At least you're getting that. At least you're getting a few targets. At least you're getting like 8 to 10 carries. At least you're getting that to work with, where a lot of these other backup running backs, they're just handcuffs and you're just waiting for them to get those touches. He's a guy that if you need something steady, if you need the potential for 10 fantasy points as the baseline, Jaylen Warren could get you that 8 to 10 range every single week. And look at what he's doing on the ramp up here, especially the last 3 games because we're ramping up from injury. 7.9, 9.3 or whatever, 10.8. We're just getting work rate, a little bit of opportunity here and there. If you need that just to stay afloat, if you're hurting that bad from bye weeks, at least you know what you're going to get. Some touches, a little bit of opportunity, and you're just going to hope things break your way. Trey Benson is the upside play for a handcuff. If something happens to James Conner during the fantasy playoffs, he has the upside to go nuclear. We got the 4.3 speed, drafted in the 3rd round. We've popped, we've flashed on the field a little bit. We have the upside to go nuclear. We have the potential to get a little bit more work through the back end of the season. He is a top tier handcuff right now. There's a few of them, but if something happens to James Conner, everybody's going to fight to get him off the waiver wire. If you got a spot, this is one of the top handcuffs to get. Cam Akers is a good handcuff. He's in the good range because of the Vikings are going to move the ball. And we know that in a pinch, he can give you some fantasy production. And we know if he has the starting role from back with the Texans, he can give you a good outing about once every 3 games. Cam Akers is good for that. About once every 3, once every other, something like that. Or we can get a major push with the Vikings as well. We're also seeing touches. Remember, Aaron Jones got nicked up 2 weeks ago, and he had to come out for a bit and come back in. Still nursing that. Cam Akers is going to get a little bit of touches here and there. 42.9% opportunity share. But really, if something happens to Aaron Jones, you're going to want Cam Akers. If I have Aaron Jones, I'm probably going to want Cam Akers for the stretch, just so I have him. Tyler Allgeier is one of the top handcuffs in the National Football League. The thing about him is if Bijan Robinson goes down, it's almost guaranteed he's getting 20-plus opportunities a game. All the goal line work, a little bit more work in the passing game, but not much. That's just not his game. But pounded up the gut. In an offense that's mostly in most games moving the football pretty good. Tyler Allgeier's that type of running back. Last week was against the Broncos on the road. Take a mulligan on that one. However, you're looking at the other games here. It's off and on with double-digit carries. Every other week with Bijan there. That's an indicator. Bijan's out. It's going to be steadfast, double-digit carries with 1, 2, 3 targets a game. And you're going to get the goal line looks. Tyler Allgeier is a good handcuff to get. Jonathan Brooks is coming back. Miles Sanders was running about 11 to 12 routes per game. He was getting a decent opportunity share. He's running in on a lot of snaps as well because they're using a good meat shield for Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard has been very efficient and is holding up very good with that efficiency throughout the back 9 of the season because they're using 2 running backs and because they're using a good meat shield. Jonathan Brooks, as he gets acclimated, they're probably going to just use him as a meat shield. However, he has more upside than Miles Sanders. He's better in the passing game, and that could lend to upside. They could test him out deep into the fantasy playoffs to see what this backfield could or should look like for 2025. That way they're ready for the future so they know what they do when it comes to their transactions. Next year, draft, free agency, what deals come their way, what happens. They know what to do because when you want to use 2 running backs, you need a third. You need a third, but Jonathan Brooks can catch the ball in the backfield, guaranteed. If they sit Miles Sanders for him, he's going to run more than 10 routes per game. Probably going to see 3 to 5 targets per game. He's so explosive, he can ignite on any of those. Notice I'm not talking about stealing Chuba Hubbard's work. Don't be a Karen on that. But Jonathan Brooks has some upside with a limited amount of work. And when you're looking at that compared to the other handcuff running backs, you're seeing guaranteed or potential, more like potential work in the future that could ignite, where the other guys, you're just waiting for an injury. And you got that with him. And on top of that, potential work as they test things back with Jonathan Brooks. Blake Corum, you're just waiting for the Kyren Williams injury. That could be this year, next year. It's not going to be a fall off. It's not going to be him stealing the job. Kyren Williams is getting a lot of work. That is an extra season and a half worth of work when it comes to snaps, pass blocking, running the ball, routes ran, and all that. So the odds are increased just due to more work. Not due to injury history, not due to anything else. Just more work equals more opportunity because you're more on the field. That being said, Blake Corum could get that work if something happens to Kyren Williams. If I have Kyren Williams, I want Blake Corum. If I'm looking for a stash, I think he's one of the top stash running backs. Just understand what you got. You can also play hot potato with these running backs if your gut tells you to drop one, to pick one up, because really you should be doing that all season long. That way you're staying active looking at these running backs. Ray Davis has been on the down clip, but we know what he looks like with James Cook out. We know more about him compared to the other handcuffed running backs. He's also a handcuff plus because if you put him in your lineup when you're actually hurting, because you got to say a prayer at the running back position, he has the chance, even with James Cook in there, to give you a little something in your lineup. I like him a lot due to that. I like him. I feel very safe with Ray Davis, and I think he has the same upside as any of the other top stash running backs out there. Jaylen Wright's one of the top stash running backs. Look for him more for the back nine of the season. Look for him to earn more touches, more opportunities. Look for him to steal Mostert's work. Look for them to test him out a little bit more. He's also very efficient in some matchups because he's got the speed to get you a good chunk of yards if he gets a lane. He's a raw running back, but he's got a lot of upside and a lot of flash. If there's an injury in this backfield, and this backfield entertains a lot of injuries, Jaylen Wright's upside just goes to the moon, even though he's sharing carries, which in this backfield, they're going to want him to share carries because of what they've endured over these last couple years. Jaylen Wright still has that upside. If we start pushing 10 opportunities a game, that's a good lottery ticket play. Gus Edwards is getting some work. He's back. You may want to look at him. You may not. He hasn't been productive yet. He's a trendy veteran. He's been okay throughout his career. We're also trending down. J.K. Dobbins is the guy. But if you want to look for a veteran to throw into your lineups, that is getting around 6 to 10 opportunities a game. Not much in the passing game right now. There you go. There's a guy. Isaac Guerendo. If something happens to Christian McCaffrey, you got a home run threat right here. A guy that can take one carry and house it. We already saw it. We saw it twice. If you want it, go get it. Braelon Allen. If something happens to Breece Hall, he's going to get a ton of work. And there are some random games earlier in the season where he was getting a lot of work. He still does here and there. And also we know if Breece Hall goes out, he will get used in the passing game. Run a fair amount of routes. Look at the targets here in the timeline there. The opportunity share is not there as a backup. They're relying more on Breece Hall as they're in a pinch. But Braelon Allen's a guy to look at if something happens to Breece Hall. Emari Demcercado. We talked about Trey Benson early. Emari Demcercado's got a lot of upside in his offense. He's used in the passing game. He runs a lot of routes, especially when James Conner is out. He came out one game a few weeks ago, had to get his ankle taped up. They split up the workload. If there's a fight for Trey Benson off the fab, Emari Demcercado is good to get for a cheaper rate. He's good to do that if you want to play a little money ball there. He's also an okay stash if you want to do that. He's an okay stash because if something happens to Conner, both these running backs need entertained. Justice Hill randomly pops off with production due to his workload in the passing game, and it's random, and it really is just when that matchup gets a little sticky to where they got to get creative in the passing game. You don't know when it's going to happen. He's also an okay time bomb to have in your lineup if you're really hurting and you need to cook with something. When it comes to stash plays, you're looking at Derrick Henry. You're seeing if he gets hurt. If he goes down, then you're going to want Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell and company. But until then, there's a lot more upside with some of those younger running backs. Sean Tucker's in a great situation. He has two running backs in front of him. He needs one of them to go down. There's better odds with two running backs with one of them getting hurt than one running back getting hurt because there's always one of those running backs on the field at all times. And they both are getting a good amount of carries. We already saw what it looks like when Sean Tucker's in either one of those roles, and it looks good. He's a good running back. He's a good stash play. This team uses their running backs. They'll use them on the field at both times. Very similar to the Carolina Panthers. Sean Tucker holds more value and should be entertained because he can give you league-winning production. He has already proved it on a small sample. Keaton Mitchell is your home run play. Something happens to Derrick Henry, they start using him more. He was out there on a couple snaps last week. That is something to entertain there. He's been out there for a few snaps. That is something to entertain. He's a shotgun running back, and when he's getting work, it's nothing, then boom. Nothing, then boom. And you may want that if you're hurting. You may want that if you like to gamble. Right now is not really the time. However, if you're in a deeper league or if you need to stash a shotgun, this is a major shotgun to look at just in case something happens to Derrick Henry. Those are the running backs we're looking at for Week 12. Let me know who you're grabbing in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.